And good evening. Tonight is Tuesday, February 19th at 7 p.m. I'll call this meeting of the Stowe Board of Selectmen to order. This is a meeting that was posted for last week, February 12th, and postponed to tonight because of the weather, last Tuesday. And we will begin, as we always do, with public input on any item that is not on our agenda. Anybody have anything to say on something not on our agenda? Seeing and hearing none. Going once, going twice. Okay. Chairman's comments. I only have one thing. I want to congratulate the Sustainable Stowe Committee. I don't know if my colleagues even know. We did email something out, but Stowe and Hudson were approved by the Baker-Polito administration to participate in the Heat Smart Mass program. This is very similar to the Solarized Mass Solar Stowe program that occurred a few years ago. This is a state program where community-based group purchases of heat pumps and things like that. So there'll be reduced prices on heat pumps in Stowe and Hudson and 2 other towns. Only 4 towns were approved for this program in this round of the program. And our application done through Sustainable Stowe, Barney Epstein, Sharon Brownfield, was approved. Very proud of them. And there'll be a program for air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, which I have. The science escapes me, but I know that they're very efficient and they really, really work. So congratulations to them and thank you. We will take up a couple of sets of minutes that we have. Thank you, Maureen. And I think the first set we have is from our last meeting of, was it January 22nd? My colleagues had a chance to review.
Mr. Chairman, just to get it on the table, I move to approve the minutes as submitted. I went through them, I didn't, not that I'm the last word, but.
Second, but I want to hear from Mr. Ryan.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes of January 22nd. Discussion. Mr. Ryan, everyone's waiting for your comments, if any.
The only one I had was on the local access section, the motion that Mr. Burke moved that the town administrator redraft the governance agreement? Or was it going to be that we were going to look at the governance agreement in the future? But I don't recall.
The way I recall it is that I had agreed to take a look at it and
Okay.
In light
rework
of-
it so that we can combine
In
what
conformity.
essentially is the tasks that are now identified separately for the 2 committees into one.
And then you were going to present that to us.
I tend to think that one's probably.
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
So, any further comments? Minutes of January 22nd.
Would Mr. Ryan be satisfied if we added to that?
I think he's
No,
okay.
I'm
with
fine.
that.
I'm fine with it.
Fine.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, I didn't remember actually assigning Mr. Wrigley something. I just.
Brian assigned it to me and I accepted it.
And we're good?
First
right.
time ever.
Seeing and hearing no other comments, all those in favor of approving the minutes of January 22nd as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. That's unanimous. Thank you. And the minutes of September 25, 2018.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of September 25, 2018 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes of September.
I shouldn't second it, I wasn't here. Well, I guess, no,
That's okay. You can
I
second.
can second it.
You should just abstain. Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of September 25th, 2018 as written. Further comment? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and those are approved. Thank you.
I will
I don't remember being
abstain on
absent.
that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes?
Was I really absent on that day, Maureen? It's a long time ago now.
I could look at the tape. For some reason I had that down.
Yeah, I recall we didn't do the minutes because that was.
Well, if you read through them, I don't say Mr. Burke said, you know.
So
sorry?
She thinks you were absent.
Maybe you were just very quiet over there.
All right, we have a tight
I will
schedule with a lot of
defer.
guests. Let's get going. Correspondence. Have my colleagues had a chance to take a look what's in the correspondence? Do they say anything that belongs in a future agenda? Seeing hearing none. I made one comment. There was a comment from the Randall trust, or from a trustee of the Randall Library about Common Road. I've asked Maureen to give a copy of that to the planning board and to ask the police department for comment, recommendation, complaint of fast traffic on Common Road. So that'll be coming your way, Chief. Thank you. Other than that, I didn't see anything. So we have a very packed agenda and an executive session at 8 o'clock. Dom, would you mind if I had Kathy goes first? She's got a meeting to get to at 7:30. Okay. Kathy, you have a meeting to go to at 7:30, right? You wanna present the Malone?
I can do that, or
Okay.
the board can do it after.
Pardon me?
I can do it, or the board can do it outside of the.
Nepotism.
If there are questions that Kathy should be here, I mean, if there are more detailed questions, if not, it's acceptance of a parcel of land that makes sense and the conditions
I
are.
don't have the agenda.
You all have in your packets, copy of a proposed deed from Melone Sons of a parcel adjacent to the town forest, correct? And it's in settlement of some litigation that they are involved in. I don't know if we need any more detail than that, right?
And the commission has voted unanimously to accept and has executed the deed, and now they're asking you to vote as well.
Mr. Burke.
I realize that we've got a full agenda, but I will be brief. I looked at the map, and I couldn't really, I'm sorry, make heads or tails of it. Where is this parcel? Is it near the golf course, or is it?
It is, no,
Yeah.
you know where the sand and gravel site is? It's at the very back of that.
Oh,
along-
there's sand and gravel.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
it's along Elizabeth Brook and abutting the
I see.
Stoughton Forest.
And, okay, that's helpful. I just, as I said, the map was confusing to me.
I had to look at it for quite a while to get any idea, but, thank you. Do my colleagues have any other questions? This seems fairly straightforward. Seeing no other questions, do I have a motion?
Move to accept the deed as presented from the J. Melone Sons and as approved by the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the deed from J. Melone and Sons as recommended by the Conservation Commission. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that is unanimous.
And Maureen has the deed and Linda's here to notarize.
Okay, so we
And I'm
should.
acknowledging that you're all signing this document.
Of our free will and
Free
deed.
will.
And you're, well, acknowledging that you're signing it under your own free will. And because I have your signatures already in my book, I just need to reference that line and page. You don't need to sign my book. And you're looking at it like, what the heck is the book?
Oh, I have a book. I just didn't know we had to sign the
attorneys
book.
don't have to keep a book.
Oh,
Thank you.
This was going so smoothly.
I have to say that
Thank you, Kathy.
the chair has had about 4 cups of coffee today, and I actually think I need to slow down just a little bit. I'm kind of speeding through this, so feeling this is good. Just a slight pause.
Thank you.
What happens when you're working home? You got that coffee maker, and there's nobody standing between you and it. All right, thank you. Next on our agenda, we'll go back to the ordinary, to the regular listing. Joint meeting with the assessors?
Yeah. Oh, Gary's here, yep. Okay.
Gary?
Wanna s- come up?
Just you, Dom, and Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
Well, there's
come on
only two
forward.
of us now, so.
So this is to fill a vacancy on the Board of Assessors. And typically under our charter, when there is a vacancy on any elected board, that board and the Board of Selectmen sitting jointly vote on an appointment to the unexpired term. So I think that's a fair summary of what we're here to do today. Dom, as chair of the Board of Assessors, do you want to say anything about Georgie? Is she here? Chris Smith?
timing, she is
Wow,
not.
wonderful timing.
I didn't think she was.
Sorry, I thought it was 7:50.
Great entry.
Where,
Well,
where,
John.
oh, wow.
Please, come on up. Just say hello. I'm Jim Sally. Nice
How
to
are
meet
you?
you.
Nice to meet
Tom Ryan.
you too.
I live at Lake Point.
Nice to meet you too.
Ryan Burke, thank you for all the work you've done.
Thanks.
That's close enough.
There you go.
Finding a board meeting.
So let's hold off on that. Georgie, I know you just got here. Do you want to say anything about your interest in being on the Board of Assessors? I see that your husband was on the board and a long time.
He was over 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, he always felt that the, number one, the lake needed some representation. And he felt very honored. He enjoyed it. And I know there's a space. And I think that it would be nice to fill it, at least temporarily.
Well, we appreciate you stepping forward to do that. Dom, do you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, we're happy to have Georgie. I mean, Jack was a terrific representative for the board. He served many years. He was a great guy, and I'm looking forward to working with Georgie. I'm sure she'll pick it up very quickly. You know, she has our recommendation.
Great. As I was saying, as you walked in the room, the way we fill vacancies is the Board of Selectmen and the Assessors, the people who are already on the Board of Assessors, sitting as one board, vote to do the appointment. So that's what's going to happen right now.
I've
So-
seen this before.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, my pleasure. I move that in a joint vote with the Board of Assessors, that Georgie Smith be appointed to fill the vacancy on the Board of Assessors, effective from now until the May 2019 annual town election.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Georgie Smith to fill the vacancy on the Board of Assessors, effective from now until the May 2019 annual town election. Any discussion, further discussion?
I just figure that you probably already know an awful lot about it. Having lived with somebody that's been doing it for 20 years.
And, you know, we've been residents here for
Mm-hmm.
more than that also.
Yeah. Well, thank you for stepping forward.
I think it's good that you feel that the lake should be represented, and I know we're always grateful for representation from the lake. I think every board in town should have some representation from the lake, so. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to a vote. This is a majority of the 7 of us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, nay. Appears to be unanimous, so sentence has been passed.
Thank you.
And the town clerk will be glad to swear you in,
Congratulations.
as soon as you get your letter.
And thank you.
Thank you.
For stepping
Thanks
forward.
again.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, now, one of our
7:15.
irregular but pleasurable duties is to recognize
We do Barney first.
Eagles.
Try Barney first. My son will be here in a
Oh, that's fine. I'm going to postpone the Eagle Scout, if you don't mind. Mr. Barney,
There he is.
Oh.
1 minute.
I already asked Mr. Barney, let's just take a few minutes. Mr. Barney, do you want to come forward, is that all right? Would you rather stay there?
It's happier here.
That's fine. Charlie, we just wanted to take some time to recognize your service on the ZBA and so many other things. I did not know that you had started serving the town in 1964. And you took a little break for part of the 80s, but then from the 80s forward, it's been continuous service on the ZBA. Can you just share with some of us who were in kindergarten when you first went on a town board?
Not all of it.
What,
The town was a lot smaller then.
yeah, did every committee meet over at the town hall, or?
We met at, the planning board met at Center School, as I recall.
Okay,
The old one.
yeah, yeah.
Pilot Grove School, I should say.
Oh,
Pilot Grove, yeah.
Oh,
It was a
right.
school still.
yeah,
That's just after. And I was, 5 years on that, I guess, and then moved over to, was invited to join the DPA.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun, very interesting at times.
I would assume there's a little bit of sarcasm in the a lot of fun. I mean, I've seen,
All the guys, everybody that was on, I've been on the board with, it's been very eager, very easy to work with. And I hope I was the same.
it's a pretty intense board. It's very hardworking, and I mean, the issues are very
Yeah, I
difficult.
didn't have very much to do with the first few years because I was an associate member at the time. But the other guys seem to have it. They had it down to the science. Probably speaking out of turn or out of school, but
Why not?
the meetings were held and adjourned, and then they were reassembled at the local watering hole, and much business was transacted there. That was
Let the record reflect he's
I'm
sitting
sure.
next to town council when he's.
Invalidate 28.
We will assume that that was all before the open meeting law.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whatever it was. It's been interesting.
Is there anything you'd like to say before I read the text of the certificate? Any scores you want to settle? Any people you want to call out?
No scores to settle. It's been, like I say, it's been a pleasure to work with all the members of the board.
Thank you, Charlie.
I appreciate your recognition.
Bruce, Ernie, Bill, anything you want to add?
It's been a pleasure to work with Charlie. I don't know what more I could say.
Mr. Burke, did you have something?
I was just going to say that the ZBA, I'm liaison to the ZBA, and I think it does a great job. There's no board in the town that touches so many people's lives as the ZBA, and actually in a direct way. And we should be very proud of the work the ZBA has done for us, especially Mr. Barney. Thank you.
So we have before us a certificate of appreciation, which reads thus: on this 19th day of February 2019, the Stowe Board of Selectmen hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to Charles Barney for over 41 years of dedicated volunteer service to the town of Stowe. Charles first volunteered to serve on the Hale School Building Committee from 1964 to 1969. He then served on the Planning Board from 1969 to 1974. Following that, Charles served on the ZBA from 1987 to 2019, 32 years. Charles has demonstrated his commitment to serve the town in many and varied ways. His work on the various committees and boards has not gone unnoticed. His ability to balance opinions and recognize opportunities has benefited the town and residents in untold ways. There is no question Charles's love for his work and his dedication will provide benefits to Stowe for many years to come. On behalf of the entire town, the Board of Selectmen wishes Charles an enjoyable retirement filled with good health, happiness, adventure, and enjoyment of family. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve and sign that certificate of appreciation for Charles Barney for his services on the ZBA, the Planning Board, and the original Hale Building Committee.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to issue a certificate of appreciation in the form just read to Charles Barney for his service on many town boards for a very long time. Charlie, thank you, and from a personal note, I know that you perhaps stayed on the ZBA perhaps a little bit longer than you really wanted to wrap some things up. That is very, very much appreciated.
I wish you could have
Shows
wrapped up cleaner.
You did a great job. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Mr. Ryan.
When I hear about people like yourself, you know, I feel like I've been on town boards forever. And as Jim said, you know, you were doing it back when, I was in grammar school. I'm a little bit older than he is. But I'm just in awe of your service to the community, and thank you very much. There aren't that many people around that put in the kind of time and effort that you have, and I think I speak for all of us that we very, very much appreciate all that you've done.
All right, let's make this official. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. Joy, thank you very, very much. And I hope we're gonna see you again.
Well, if you wait a minute, we have your certificates. Yeah, we'll bring it up to you.
Yeah, just,
I'll get it to him.
Yeah.
In fact, Mr. Chair, may I be excused from participating in the next agenda item?
Really?
Yes, really.
All right.
think it's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary.
It's a conflict of interest, potentially.
I think the Attorney General has other things to.
We've got town
occupy
council
himself with.
sitting here. We can-
If you're really worried about that, we can find something else for you.
There's gotta be something he knows that we don't.
Very little.
I don't want my son's certificate to be
Tainted in any way?
Thank you, Brian.
Charlie, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming in, too.
So, now, as I was saying, and now that we got rid of the conflicted selectmen, one of our pleasures is recognizing young men in town who have reached the rank, or about to reach the rank of Eagle Scout, which is a tremendous amount of work and a very significant achievement at a very young age. Rumor has it that there may be some adults in the room, I have to do this, I'm sorry, who have achieved the rank of Eagle Scout.
Oh, he took a-
I think the town administrator has gone maybe 4 or 5 meetings without mentioning this. Would you like to recount?
Well, I'll only say that I still remember, scouting was everything to my neighborhood growing up in Orange, Mass. And we had a very active group only because of the adult leadership. We saved money to buy our own bus, and we drove it across country to Yosemite. And the stories that we could tell, that you could tell.
That
were
you
many.
can't tell.
Yeah, you know, we went to Expo 67 in Montreal. You know, the things that scouts do through the leadership, and Troop 1 is as active as any, but it's an indelible imprint on my character and the things that I remember most. Some of my closest friends, we still are after all these years, were scouts growing up. And I'm sad. At the same time, I'm encouraged because there are still active troops, because there are not as many as there once was. So here's to all of you, both the scouts and the leaders, because it's not as common as it once was, but the importance to youth remains the same.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hawes?
can I invite the 2 honorees to tell us briefly what their Scout project, Eagle Scout
I
project
think that's a great idea. So first of all, for those of you following at home, we are honoring tonight Connor Bernklow and Edmund Teddy, right? Burke?
Yes.
Yeah, Teddy Burke, who are to be inducted in as Eagle Scouts at a court of honor on March 2nd. And why don't we follow Mr. Hawks' lead? Connor, you first. What was your project?
My project had 2 parts to it. The first part was installing a box out in front of the community center for the purpose of disposing of old American flags. And retiring.
Very
And
good.
then I built a fire pit behind the fire station so that they could be properly retired. We actually just did our first retirement last weekend. Went really well.
Excellent. Gary Bernklow, Scoutmaster, former selectman. Would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, both of these guys worked really hard and great projects, and the feedback from both the projects has been outstanding in the community, so.
And Teddy,
pretty
what
proud.
was your project?
I raised money to install a free little library at the Pine Bluffs Town Beach, which is another box where you can take or give books and kind of share books amongst the community. And it's done.
What was it called?
It's called a free little library.
Yeah, I've seen, I read an article about that. Yeah, sure. That's
And
great.
It's just a nice way to interconnect the community.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Mr. Burke, selectman, proud father. Anything you'd like to say?
No, my son spoke very well for himself.
Yes, he did. So, well, gentlemen, I'm going to read your citations. They
Before
are.
you do that,
Yes.
I hope you realize two young gentlemen, that given your particular pedigree, that not for long from now, we expect to see you sitting where we're sitting now. Both of you having fathers who are either are or were honored selectmen.
I'm hoping you're aiming a lot higher than that.
It's a starting point
All
for
right.
some of us, for some of you.
It'll be a dynasty.
Like the way
Charles,
this kid thinks.
just a point of history, Charles Schultz, former Secretary of
George
State-
Schultz.
George Schultz, used to sit in our metaphorical chairs. He was a selectman in the town of Stowe. So, a few people have gone on beyond.
He aimed a little higher.
Yes.
Well, I know your fathers are proud of you, and so are we. And the official citation reads, "Be it known that the Stowe Board of Selectmen hereby extends its warmest congratulations to Connor Bernklow and Teddy Burke in recognition of his induction into the Eagle Court of Honor on March 2nd, 2019. And be it further known that the Stowe Selectmen extend their best wishes for his future success." And it's signed by all of us. Before we go to a vote on this, Mr. Burke, are you representing us at the Court of Honor, or?
I plan to.
Okay, so.
I think I'm not conflicted out of that.
I don't think you are either. We'll ask the AG to look the other way. Do I have a
I'm
motion?
asking Tom.
I will make a motion. I move to recognize Boy Scouts Connor Bernklow and Edmund Burke for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout and to sign letters and proclamations for their recognition ceremony on Saturday, March 2nd, 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to honor Connor Bernklow and Edmund Burke in recognition of their achievement of the rank of Eagle Scout at a Court of Honor on March 2nd, 2019, to sign letters and proclamations in accordance thereto. Any further discussion? Mr. Ryan?
I think you guys have done a great job, you know. To achieve that rank, I was a lowly second class. That's as far as I ever made it. But you guys have a lot ahead of you, and you know, you should be, you know, as we're doing here, full commendation. So keep up the good work. I'm sure you guys will. I'd also like to mention their leaders, Gary and JP, that without their leadership, I think that it would be much more difficult. I'm sure these guys would be able to do it, but you guys have done a great job continuing the flow and keeping the scouting program here as vibrant as it is. You know, it should be well commended.
Mr. Chairman, one further, just a question of the historian, unofficial though it might be. I've had the honor of being present when you've done slideshows and given some statistics. Can you, off the top of your head, tell us how many members of Troop 1 in Stowe have attained this rank?
How many members?
Yes.
There's 81 now?
You're 82.
I'm the 82nd.
82 and 83?
81 and 82.
81 and 82. That's got to be some kind of record
Yeah,
for
that's
the
amazing.
population of a town like this, I would think.
It's not, it isn't actually, because we went so long without having one for a long time. The troop was formed in 1912, and our first Eagle Scout was in 1932.
Well,
And
so,
from 32 to 84, we had a total of 14 Eagle Scouts.
hmm,
So the rest of them have been Eagles since John Paul became Scoutmaster, and it's really a credit to him.
thank you.
So,
Well, congratulations to you and commendations for your leadership.
Thank you, thank you.
It's a great job, especially at your ages, to be focused on something like that for the public good is really unusual and is really to be commended. I think I made Life Scout, is that a rank?
Yes.
Before I lost the motivation and the focus. So I'm impressed. Motions are made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. And at Mr. Burke's request, we would notice that he is abstained from this or
Oh, yes,
recused
let the
himself.
record reflect that.
Let's sign Connor's.
You sign it later.
Thank you, guys.
Assistant Scoutmaster, I don't think I ever abstained from one of these.
Your son was never.
That's true.
I don't think there would have been any complaints. Sometimes we have differences of opinion with my colleague, but I don't think there would have been on this one.
Maureen, you want me to sign the cover letter?
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
I don't know, Brian, you don't think it's bad form for your own son not to have your signature on it? It's like, you can always sign it at home, right?
Well, you can't take these home with you. You gotta wait for the presentation.
You gotta wait to
Yeah.
be official.
Well, I'll be
Yeah.
doing the
Let me
presentation.
just-
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this the one? Yeah, that's you.
And by the way, I'll very likely be making use of the flag retirement.
So
But I talked to Gary about that a number of years ago, and I think it's a great thing, because
It's already been emptied like 4 times.
Yeah.
Been filled up and emptied 4 times.
Right.
I've been stockpiling flags folded up neatly
Yeah.
for many years now. So it's time to retire them properly.
All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, congratulations.
And as a parent, I thank you for it.
Teddy. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Connor.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I was a Girl Scout.
You could be a Boy Scout.
Taylor was a true one.
He was. He never made it up.
No, but he still keeps in touch with us.
Yeah, okay.
See you, Gary.
Good to see you again.
Mr. Burke returns to the fold. We now have the appointment of Constable. Who's here? Oh.
I'm here.
Come on.
Brian Burke, Bolton alone.
Don Hawks, nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Jim South.
Good to meet you, Bolton.
Tom Ryan?
John, how are you?
Paul, have a seat. Thank you very much for applying to be a constable. Why don't you just summarize for people, we have your materials.
Yep.
Looks great. You're already a constable in Marlborough, but why don't you summarize some of your background and what
Sure.
your interest is?
Yeah, well, I recently retired from a long career in corporate finance and accounting, most recently at iRobot Corporation, serving as the VP of Treasury there. I also, for the past 10 years, have served as an auxiliary police officer in the city of Newton. In connection with that work, I know a bunch of other guys that are constables in other communities, so when I was retiring, they suggested I consider this as a way to keep connected to the communities, keep myself busy, and, kind of guided me along the process. So I've joined the Constables Association, Mass Bay Constables. I've had some formal training, also had lots of training with the police department in Newton. So I have done quite a bit of this work already with the city of Marlborough. So I've served all sorts of civil process for the city of Marlborough. So I do have some experience now, and look forward to serving the Stowe community, and appreciate the opportunity.
So you'll be a constable in both Marlborough and Stowe?
Correct.
Okay.
I've also applied in Southborough and Framingham, and both of those look like they'll appoint as well.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah.
Questions from members of the board?
I'll just point out that a former relative of mine was a constable in another town, and I know he was just in that one town, but it was a larger community. I
Yep.
think it's a fairly common process, a practice for people to serve in more than one community.
Oh, I think
It
so,
is.
especially with
Yeah,
small.
yeah.
So I certainly welcome you, coming all the way from Bolton.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Does Mr. Tavalon, do you have any plans to apply to be a constable in your town of Bolton?
It is an elected position in Bolton, so 3 years ago now, I did run all of the incumbents won. I came close, but all of the incumbents won the positions. There's actually 5 of them over there, believe it or not.
How many do we have?
I think just 2.
I'm not sure.
I think too, but I'll just.
I think it's 2,
I remember John Chick, but it's been a while.
yeah.
I
Thank you.
can't imagine we need more than 2, but.
No, I think 2 is plenty for a small town like this. Bolton with 5 doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that strikes me as kind of odd. But
Yeah.
elected, I did not know.
Some are elected, some are appointed,
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, depends on the town.
Okay.
These are the charters.
Do you have to be a
Motion?
resident? I guess you have to be a resident to be elected.
In the towns where it's an elected position, and even in some of the appointed towns, they want you to be a resident as well.
Yeah, for a small town, that seems awfully limiting, but,
Right.
okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move the selectmen appoint Paul Tavalone, is that correct?
Correct.
Pronunciation? Thank you. As constable for the town of Stowe to serve the remainder of a 3-year term expiring June 30, 2020.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to appoint Paul Tavalone as constable for the town of Stowe to serve the remainder of a term expiring June 30th, 2020.
And I think it's fair to say that, having just gone through this process, we will see your name come up when we renew appointments
Absolutely.
Yes.
a year from now. So,
Yep.
thank you for stepping up.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Paul, we appreciate it.
Great.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that's unanimous. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, good to meet you. Good luck, I'll keep you in mind.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Bosworth, do you want to join us? Chief, you're here to recommend the appointment of a full-time police officer, Jacob Nick.
Yes, I am.
Anything you want to say about Jacob? We have the materials.
Yep, this is a replacement position. James Landy was our last hire. He came from Townsend Police Department. He's gone back to Townsend where he resides. So after some delay in this process, we've got what appears to be a fine young gentleman. He's a resident of Northborough, graduate of Worcester State University. He's a member of the Northborough Police Department as a special police officer. He attended and graduated the Massachusetts State Police Municipal Police Academy last year, which was 6 months. I think all he needs is some experience that we can give him, and it's a win-win. He can help us out. We've been very short-handed this year. He went through a fairly extensive evaluative process with our in-house supervisors, and then again, with myself, the fire chief, the highway superintendent, and Selectman Ryan. And after those evaluative processes, he's our preferred candidate to go forward. He's had his physical and psychological testing. We're just waiting on the results. And he's eager to get going. His mother's a dispatcher in Northborough for the police and fire, public safety, so I thought that was ironic. And we've done an extensive background check on him, and everything's positive. He'll do the customary year's probation, and like to get him going as soon as possible, and have him start his career and help out the town of Stowe.
Well, terrific. Tom, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's one of the things that lately, we've been finding people with less experience than we're used to. But we interviewed Jacob, and we actually had a conversation after the interviews also with 2 of the officers that had interviewed him to begin with, and they felt that he would be a good fit, and that it would be a little different to take somebody that is very, very new to the game and be able to instill their view of how the job's done. Rather than, sometimes you have to break people of bad habits, and in this case, he really doesn't have any. So we'll, the 3 officers will mold him as they see fit, and he did seem like a very, very nice young man, very personable, and I think he'll be a good addition.
Comments from my colleagues?
Only the packets that you provide for these hires are always very complete. It's very helpful. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So along those lines, for people watching at home, a candidate for police officer goes through 2 rounds of interviews, one by the supervising officers, or lieutenant and the 2 sergeants, then by a screening committee, the chief, a selectman, who else, the town administrator? No,
Down in this
Usually he was
fire chief,
on vacation, fire chief and highway
highway
superintendent,
superintendent.
under the direction of the town administrator.
And then
It's
there's
worked very well.
then an informal investigation where we actually go to the person's hometown and snoop around a little bit.
Correct.
And try to get the real story. And Mr. Mick has passed with flying colors from everything we can see, so anxious to welcome him aboard.
Mr. Chairman, just note the motion for this will be a little different from those we hear for a lot of other appointments. Rather than specifying a date effective, this says effective date of hire. So that, can you just explain for the people that are watching at home why this qualified that way?
So part of the hiring process for full-time police officers, we send them out for extensive psychological and physical testing. This young man's had both of those, which is waiting on the results. So the
Okay.
appointment would be pending successful results from those 2 examinations, which I don't anticipate any problems, but to protect the town's best interest, his appointment, if I'm correct, Mr. Wrigley, is pending those successful tests.
Yes, we made that decision collectively to go forward, given the timing and the fact that we've had 2 frustrated rounds. Wouldn't want to lose another one.
Okay.
So they were scheduled, our meeting got extended here, so the decision was made to have him go forward, spend the money for the testing, psyche eval and physiological, and taking the risk that if the board decided not to, then we have to start over.
I believe you ran that by me, and I agree completely, and I think it makes complete sense, considering that every police officer is on a 1-year probationary period, so
Correct.
might as well get them started. So,
Mr.
do I
Chairman.
have a motion? Yes.
Tom, no, on the recommendation of Police Officer Search Committee, I move to appoint Jacob Mick as a full-time police officer for a 1-year probationary period from the effective date of hire.
Second.
Further discussion? Motion made and seconded to appoint Jacob, on the recommendation of the Police Officer Search Committee, to appoint Jacob Mick as a full-time police officer for a 1-year probationary period from the effective date of his hire. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? You got your new officer.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Chief and Tom for
Mr.
participating in this as you
And
carry
Chief
on the
Landry
tradition.
and Mr. Clayton.
And one thing I'd like to say is, Chief Bosworth mentioned it, is this system has been working very well. I'm very, very pleased with it. I think I've probably gone through this now 10 times, something like that, in, the last number of years. And I think we've come up with some very, very good people, and I think it's very important that the officers who are going to be directly supervising them have an opportunity to weigh in on them, which is more important than anything else, because if they get a bad vibe out of them, and they're not gonna be able to work with them, we could end up with a bad hire. So, it's with Jacob here, as I said, after we had the formal interview, we talked with 2 of the officers, and, they were, we ended up having a very good conversation, and they felt that it was definitely somebody that they could work with, which really is a reinforcement of, they wouldn't send them to us if they couldn't. But it's nice to hear directly from them, and it just so happened that it worked out that way nicely.
No, I think actually in the time I've been on the board, our selection process for not only police officers, but public safety chiefs, the promotion process in both the police department and the fire department has really become very regularized and very, very good. You've got it down to a science, Chief Landry is, making some real strides in trying to bring along, and the call fire department in particular. I'm very proud of the sort of HR side of our public safety departments.
Thank you.
And what they're doing.
Yeah, I think if you do a little extra work at the beginning, it pays dividends over for everyone.
Right.
The department, the citizens, and the people running the town.
Right.
And it works for everyone.
So, okay, terrific. So you got a new officer.
Thank you very much.
We vote?
We did vote. I thought we voted. Did we vote?
We did.
Did we? Okay.
We did
If
vote.
not, if not, we did.
We did. This was
Okay.
post-vote discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go to the tape.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you, Chief.
support. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one of the things I'd like to do is, unlike our last candidate, or our last hire, when it's appropriate, if we could get Jacob in here to meet the entire board, it would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
So our last item before, liaison reports, but before our executive session is to review Maureen's draft of the Selectmen's Annual Report. I reviewed the first draft, and I hate to admit that I don't think I took a close look at the second draft. But I have it. I hope my colleagues did.
Which,
So we're
this is the
looking at.
2-7 date, February 7, is that the first draft you're referring to? Or the second draft?
We're looking at the draft that was emailed out this morning, shortly after 9 o'clock.
Does that one have the date of 2-7 on it?
It has 2:15.
2:15.
Okay, we don't have that one.
Mr. Chair, I must admit, I didn't look at it that closely either. I realize we have some deadlines coming up. My question is, would we be able to take a quick look at it, you, yourself included, over the next couple of days, just to get it back to Maureen, and to you, if we had any thoughts?
Well, considering that we have a meeting in a week on February 26th, can we
Yeah,
vote this thing next
Mhm.
Tuesday?
absolutely.
Can you add it to the agenda?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll all have the up-to-date final draft,
Yep.
final draft. Okay.
Let's make sure you're there. So check your email at 9:07 today.
Yeah, no, I saw it, and it's up on my computer. I just haven't had a chance.
That's okay.
Okay. Maureen, could you do me a favor and maybe text Jesse that we're ready?
I did, yeah.
Oh, great.
Good job.
So,
Great.
a while ago.
There wouldn't be anything wrong with getting started a little bit early, considering that Ms. Hegeman is double booked for tonight. But until the planning board gets here, liaison reports. We'll start with Mr. Burke.
The chair and I attended the Finance Committee meeting that was at the beginning of this month, and had some interesting feedback from the Finance Committee. I think we need to, it occurred to me after the chair left that meeting that we need to keep the Finance Committee more regularly updated on some of these things, because a lot of the questions that were being asked, I later learned out, they had just forgotten that we had covered at the time we were there previously. And that's the problem. That was the problem, I think, most of the problem that night. LACAC, you heard from them at our last meeting. There'll be something in the Stowe Independent about the awards they've received. And I'm sorry to say, because of other obligations, I missed the Council on Aging meeting last week.
Great. We're gonna finish up, Lori, we're gonna finish up our liaison reports
Sure.
real fast. Mr. Hollis.
Just to be brief, the school committee met last week and had quite an extensive discussion, just to kind of flag it as a future item, that there is a lot of interest among folks in town to go to a full kindergarten enrollment in the school department. They had an extensive discussion about that and the finances connected with it. And the only action that they tabled it until they've had a chance to digest all of that. But I think it's safe to say that it's still several years out from coming, from what I gathered from from the material that was submitted at the meeting. And lastly, with the approval of the town administrator, I've had some correspondence with our town council. I know he's very sparse with his access to that.
Oh, that's an over-exaggeration.
As needed basis. And concerning the late boom, because I know I had to say late boomer, my friend had given me the most recent rules and trying to shepherd that through the town meeting process. That's it.
Thank you. Capital planning continues to meet. It is a challenging capital year, and the next 3 years are gonna be challenging. You'll hear more about that a week from today at the town administrator's financial state of the town presentation. Trying to pick through things a little bit. I did attend FinCom. I thought their questions were fine. I agree with Mr. Burke. We need to go to their meetings more and just keep them in the loop a little bit more. Just so my fellow board members know, I'm working a little bit with Doug Hyde and members of the Historical Commission and the Historical Society and library trustees in connection with the town hall renovation project to make sure that they are considering the historical items that are on the second floor of the Randall Library. I don't know what might happen with those, whether they might move or not, but I want to make sure that there's some discussion about it. And an informal group is meeting this Saturday that I'm a part of, and that's it. Mr. Ryan?
Continuing on with the town hall renovation. Over the last few weeks, we ended up losing a couple of our members due to resignations. One person left town, another one was basically wanted to get involved in a different way with it. So we were down 2 members. We've had a couple new members appointed by their respective committees at this point. So we should be back up to full strength for the next meeting. And we do have a copy of the existing conditions report that we're going over right now. One of the other things, not with the town hall renovation, but I was given a copy of a report. It's an internal police report, basically, that described how they worked very well together on a recent lost person. Somebody had gotten lost. Essentially, they got lost. I'll leave it at that. But the police department worked very, very well together, and one of the officers wrote a very complimentary memo thanking quite a few people in the department and how well they work together. So I'd like to hear that.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ingeborg, last but not least.
I have 2 things. SMOT met last week, and we selected a successful bidder for the demolition of the structures on the Red Acre Road parcel. We had 6 bids, I think, and so that's moving forward. And then on a really exciting note, Kathy Sparrow, who's the conservation administrator, was we nominated her last fall, but today she found out she was awarded the Conservation Administrator of the Year award from the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners. And that is...
I should recuse myself from clapping.
We got nomination support letters from Jamie Eldridge and Kate Hogan and Stowe Conservation Trust and Planning Board. And it's very competitive, and we were really pins and needles, so we were very happy to hear that. So she'll receive that award on March 2nd.
Nice.
Very well deserved, if I do say so.
That's it for me.
I do have a conflict, of course, but, so, thank you very much, and we're now going to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair.
There being, let me say what I gotta say.
Oh, sorry.
There being a public discussion being detrimental to the interests of the town, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss potential and threatened litigation. We will not be coming, we will not be going back into open session.
Mr. Chair, I move to convene an executive session jointly with the Planning Board pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purposes of discussing probable litigation, the discussion of which would be detrimental to the town's interest if discussed in public, and to review executive session minutes, and then to adjourn thereafter immediately, and not to recommence.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to go into executive session for the reasons stated. This is a roll call vote. Mr. Burke.
Aye.
Mr. Hawes.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
Ms. Hageman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The Board of Selectmen's in executive session. I don't know about the planning board.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right.